Hey, this is Robert Naini, your spray foam advisor. So today I want to talk about thermal barriers and specifically what the building code says about spray foam insulation and thermal barriers. Now, interestingly enough, the code sections in the IRC and the IBC that address fire protection and thermal barriers, they talk about more than just spray foam insulation. Specifically, they talk about foam plastic insulations. That means it includes spray foam, it includes extruded polystyrene, it includes polyiso boards. So pretty much any type of foam plastic insulation material used in construction applications has to follow these same principles when it comes to fire protection. Now the key fire protection principle after you look at labeling and testing, but that relates to thermal barriers, the code says that all foam plastic insulations have to be separated from the interior of the building by a 15-minute thermal barrier. And that is by prescriptive nature, that's the half-inch gypsum board per the building code. So the building code says that if we install foam in this wall right here, we put foam inside the wall, any kind of foam, it doesn't matter what kind of foam it is, that we need a 15-minute thermal barrier to separate the foam from the interior of the building, basically to protect the foam from what happens inside the building, from the occupants inside the building. Because ultimately we know that foam is combustible, that any type of foam is combustible and it will burn, but we want to put some type of barrier over it. It's gypsum board, right? It's basically crushed rock, and rocks don't burn. So we put these crushed rocks over the foam so that we have protection on the inside of the building, ultimately for a life safety purpose, because if there's a fire inside the building, the code is trying to provide enough time for the occupants to escape, for the occupants to get out of the building. And that's kind of the guideline of where that 15-minute thermal barrier comes from. And as I said before, the code prescribes that as a half-inch gypsum board barrier. That is the prescriptive thermal barrier of the building code. Now there are a couple of ways that we can omit that thermal barrier or that we can provide some alternate for that thermal barrier. And one of those is a large-scale test. So specific products can be tested in a large-scale method and can actually omit the thermal barrier requirement or be a substitute thermal barrier. And one example of that is going to be like a cementitious-based product that can be spray applied over a surface. Well, it passes a standalone thermal barrier test, and if that cementitious, spray-applied cementitious material passes a standalone thermal barrier test, well, then it can be applied over any foam plastic insulation as a standalone thermal barrier. Now, another option that you might be thinking about would be an intumescent coating. Now, technically, an intumescent coating is not a thermal barrier. An intumescent coating tested over a specific spray foam provides an interior finish system that omits the thermal barrier requirement. So if we're going to install, say, spray foam on the underside of a roof deck in an open roof assembly, like in a restaurant, we put the spray foam on the underside of the roof assembly. We can't just leave that foam exposed to the inside of that building. So it needs a thermal barrier to go over it. Now, how do we do this? Well, one option would be to take gypsum board up there and figure out how to install half-inch gypsum board or a half-inch gypsum board ceiling. But in many cases, the architect or the designer, the builder doesn't like that option. They don't want to build a ceiling in that space. They want that open ceiling concept. So what can we do? Well, if that foam has a tested system, a tested assembly with an intumescent coating that allows it to be an interior finish system, then the foam is applied to the underside of the roof, the coating is applied to the surface of the foam, and that coating is now an interior finish that can be left exposed to the restaurant, to that space inside the building. So those are that's kind of the guidance behind how thermal barriers, what the code says, specifically all foam plastics must be separated from the interior of the building by a 15-minute thermal barrier. And when we're using something other than half-inch gypsum board, there's a reason. Either it meets the prescriptive requirements of the code, or it's not really a thermal barrier. We're just omitting the thermal barrier requirement by providing a system that meets interior finish standards. This has been Robert Naini with Spray Foam Advisor. Thanks for checking us out. Catch us on some more videos. I love questions. Anyone out there, feel free to shoot in a question. I'll give you an email address right here for any questions you have. Send them to questions@sprayfoamadvisor.com. sprayfoamadvisorsingular.com. So questions at sprayfoamadvisor.com. Go ahead and send those questions in. I'll get to as many of them as I can, and I'll try to incorporate a select few into some of my weekly videos. And of course, if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to the blog if you haven't already done that. Find us on YouTube and like us, like and follow us there. And check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Find us on all of your favorite social media sites, and you can keep up with the words of wisdom coming out of Spray Foam Advisor. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it. We'll catch you on some more videos. Take care.